Hi everybody, my name is Brianna and I work here at the Camp Gallery. And today I have the pleasure of having a discussion with Lisa Whittington, who is a featured artist in the most recent exhibition that we have, Art from Experience-Based Identity. She's most known for her painting of Emmett Till, how she sent him and how she got him back. She is a playwright, graphic designer, as well as an artist. So we're just going to wait for her to join the room, and then we'll get started with the discussion. Oh, I see her. Let's see how we get this started. I think if you just request Lisa to join, I can add you. There we go. Hello.
Hi, Brianna. How are you?
So nice to see you and meet you face to face finally. How are you?
Oh, it's been a lot of emails.
Yes.
But here we are, face to face.
So I'm so excited to be talking with you, and I'm so excited for the launch of the show today. What do you think? What do you think?
Oh, it looks fantastic. I am totally amazed at what you all have pulled together.
Oh,
and I'm absolutely, thankful to be a part of it and to be able to represent my culture and, my art.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely get into more of that as the discussion progresses. But I'll just start with some more simpler questions. So as a Renaissance child, can you describe to me the nature of your relationship to art and creation?
Well, I think everything really started for me when I was younger, when I was a child. That's when the spark hit me, looking at the sky, looking at the trees, and especially looking at the faces of people and realizing that I am also a part of creation. And that connection with other human beings is one of the things that really inspires me and is really my major connection.
Right. And I know that you're a Harlem native, and talking about connection, I mean, there's a lot of chances to meet people and see different people here in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
How has that influenced you, being from New York City?
Oh, you know what? I always tell people that New York City raised me. New York City raised me. And learning to really appreciate who you are and where you're from, because where you're from shapes you, whether you love that place or not. Where you were born shapes you and prepares you for your future, for wherever it is that you go. And Harlem was where I was born, the place that shaped me. Harlem taught me how to see. As a child, I was not allowed to go out very much. So I had to always look out of the window. So when you're looking out of a window, like our eyes are windows.
Right.
Those are our windows, are our eyes. But physical windows, like you see in the tenants and apartment buildings and the projects in New York City, they offer a perspective when you are looking at the window, when you're looking into it or you're looking out of the window. And I spent a lot of time looking out of the windows. And some of the ways that New York people really communicate was call each other from the window. Yo, meet up. Hey, people communicated by screaming and yelling from the windows or talking from the windows. So there was a lot that you can see from the windows. Just as we look at life on the internet and we're looking from a computer screen, you can almost think of it as the same way. It makes us an observer. And so I became an observer. Harlem made me an observer. And then when I walked the city streets, my first museum was the graffiti that I saw on the walls in the streets, and anything that I saw on the street. That was my first introduction to color, until my teachers took me to museums and introduced me to some other formal works of art. But the streets of New York City has always been my first muse, and I have to represent my city the right way. New York is a melting pot. You know, I've been exposed to so many different cultures of people, but to still stay connected to who I am. And Harlem was one of the places that kept me connected to who I am. Because one of the major things that you see in Harlem was the color brown. You saw the brown on the tones of people's skin, as well as on the buildings. Right. And so it made me in love with the color brown. And I'm in love with what Harlem and what New York has done for me and how it has shaped me.
That's beautiful. And I think, because I'm also from New York and I'm also an artist, obviously not at your level, but I think the way that you described how living in the vibrant city of New York can influence the way you see things artistically and the way you take in the world is very similar to how I felt, especially when I was younger. So I think you said that beautifully.
What part of New York?
Well, right now I'm in Westchester, but it's right on the border of the Bronx. I went to high school in the Bronx. My family's from the Bronx, so.
Oh, the Bronx.
Boogie down.
Yes, down.
So can you tell us who some of your favorite artists are, visual or otherwise?
Oh, I have quite a few. Well, first I'm going to say James Baldwin, who you see him behind his face behind me. I love him. He inspires everything that I do. And even though he's not a visual artist, he's a poet, and his words and his essays and his writings and his speech, philosophy, it affects everything I do. And so I close out a piece of my work without consulting James Baldwin.
Wow.
So it's not a done deal until James Baldwin seals the deal. So he helps me find the proper title. And by me including in my works of art, it keeps his work alive. And I think as artists, that's one of the things that we have to do. And I learned that from Jean-Michel Basquiat. You know, Jean-Michel Basquiat, he basically said, and you can see him, he said it in one of his movies or documentaries, and he talked about how a piece of another artist will go through him and he brings new light to it. So, and so I pay homage to other artists with my work. I respect what they do. And I definitely pay homage to other artists. And then, so Jean-Michel Basquiat is also one of my favorites because he has a brush language that is just free. He doesn't care what you think. He's going to say what he has to say with his brush. Right. Up to the viewer to figure that out. And then there is Frida Kahlo. I love Frida Kahlo because she wrote her autobiography in paint. And so she has inspired me to write my autobiography in paint. I always thought about, okay, I got to write it. You don't have to write autobiography with words. You can write your autobiography in another form of media.
Right.
And so she has inspired me with that. And then there is Picasso. I love Picasso because Picasso, he had so many different styles. I have a lot of different styles. And he called on whatever style was necessary. He didn't let anyone or anything put him into a box. If he felt like what I want to do and how I want to say it, and this is how it needs to be said with this style. That's what he did, and he wasn't afraid of that, and I respect him for that. And another artist that I really love is Keith Haring. Growing up in New York City, I got to witness Keith Haring firsthand riding the subway.
Oh,
and
wow.
every day he would amaze me with the things that he would put on the subway walls. And that to me was amazing, to see him grow and to become famous, and to know I had a firsthand seat on how exciting his work was, how simple it was, but how exciting it was. And there's also Romare Bearden, as you can probably tell with some of my collage work. Romare Bearden always has a special place because of the courageous way that he put his artworks together. And my ultimate favorite, which everybody that knows me knows, that if Van Gogh was alive, him and I would probably be best friends. Seriously, if he was alive, his story, his art, everything has coached me. And when I first entered the museum and I saw Starry Night, that artwork did something, because it allows you to travel, and it allowed me to travel from wherever I was in my mind and to walk those hills and valleys and look at the sky moving.
Beautiful.
And his story just touches me. And so I will travel thousands of miles to go and spend time with Van Gogh, because his story really inspired me. And one of the things that really inspired me was because people really didn't understand him. He was really an artist ahead of his time. Yeah. And he wanted to paint with other artists and hang out with other artists. They didn't want to, because they felt like he wasn't selling enough artwork. He wasn't like them. You know, and we have a lot of that in the world. There were other artists that were very egotistical hanging around him, and he typically wasn't good enough for them. But history flipped that. And so, and I respect his story, everything about him. I respect his story.
That's beautiful. And I can definitely see his influence on you and your work, especially in your piece, Under a Soprano Sky. That's personally one of my favorites.
Which?
Under a Soprano Sky.
Okay. And something that I love about him is that, you know, he wasn't afraid to be different. Mm-hmm. You know, he used thick paint. You know, he used to like his money, which sometimes I do that, spend the last of my money to go buy some, but, you know, it just brings me joy.
Right. And I also love the point you made earlier about how you consult other artists, even if their way of communicating isn't visual, to sort of confirm what you're doing. And I think it's important to note that culture, art, literature, music, even though they're different mediums, they are speaking a similar language. And there's a narrative that's joined throughout all of them that you continue in your work for generations to come, and that those who have gone have laid the foundations for you to pick up. And I think that's—
And you know what? And I'm sorry to interrupt you. There is another living artist that inspired me and has embraced me as well, and that's Charlie Palmer. I've been a fan of Charlie Palmer's work for a long time, and I've actually gone with him in his studio and worked on my own works, and he's coached me on things and given me some of. So he's a living artist that I truly admire as well.
That's amazing. I'm glad you mentioned him. So speaking of narratives, I know that a lot of your work, or most of your work, is highly narrative. And I saw on your website that you have a page that decodes a lot of your pieces. Mm-hmm. Why is it important for you to decode it and for you to break it down?
Because decoding my work is a blueprint. Mm-hmm. I've studied enough art to know, and been in enough conversations to understand that somebody can try to take your art, flip it to mean something. And so by me decoding my own work, when I'm gone, there's still a blueprint left to say, this is what I meant by this, even though every viewer isn't to their own thought,
Right.
but to have the words from the artist directly is invaluable, especially in history.
Right.
Those kind of things are invaluable. And so because of the nature of my work, especially with some of the more graphic or tragic pieces, there's a lot of symbolism from the color and everything that needs to be discussed. Because when I'm gone, I don't want to have to come down from heaven and have to smack somebody upside their head. Flip the meaning of my work.
No, I hear you.
It's important for me to leave a blueprint, what I meant for my work to be.
Right. And I think that is very powerful, especially considering the subject matter that you choose to take on. And it is necessary, I think, just so we can have your, like you said, what you meant by everything and what you were trying to communicate. Speaking of that, I know that your works are historical, autobiographical, and deeply spiritual. And I wanted to know if you, as a Black artist working this way, how you confront and handle any feelings of responsibility you may have in trying to express your truth as a Black woman, as a Black person, and also speaking on behalf of Black people to non-white and white audiences alike. It's kind of loaded. Sorry.
I understand. And it has to be loaded. But there is a responsibility. I have studied art all of my life. I have traveled all over the world looking at art. Mm-hmm. I have a terminal degree in art. I've taught so many people art. And so, and then on top of that, I am a Black woman. And as I have traveled the world and gone out of different museums, there's something I don't see a lot of, and that's Black art. Right. That's telling our stories. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of what galleries and museums are doing. Their job, like a museum's job, that's the ultimate job. That is the holder of history.
Right.
A museum is the holder of history. They pass that history on to the next generation and teach other generations about the last generations. So as I'm walking these halls in the museums, I'm not seeing much artwork that looks like me, mm-hmm. that says the story that my people have gone through. Mm-hmm. And I don't want those stories erased. And so with knowing what I know, and so not a lot of people know that, and sometimes I try to educate people about that. That's why it's been my fight to get my work on museum walls. It's not because some ego, it is because I am trying to preserve the culture of my own people. And to have, and museums, they are the gatekeepers. Right. For holding our history.
Right.
And so with all that I know and all that I know how to do and all that I have seen my people go through, it is my responsibility. How can I not? So I absolutely have to do it.
That's beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to have you featured in this show, because a lot of this show is about retelling and remembering history, American history, because it truly is what marks our identity as Black people. And we can't know who we are or where we're going if we don't understand where we came from. And like you said, museums are the gatekeepers of history. And a lot of history, as is well known, is whitewashed. So it is the responsibility of those who choose to step up to insert their voices and the voices of others and the truth into history so that we can remember.
And you know what? I'm going to bring up this point. I'm going to bring this point about Emmett Till.
Yes.
I had my Emmett Till painting. It took me years to complete, and I had it. It was here all the time.
That is so moving, by the way. I cried looking at that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But I just happened to have that painting on hand when Dana Schutz created her painting of Emmett Till. And if her painting just went forward, that would have been the history of Emmett Till that people would have got, that would have been on the museum walls.
Right.
However, someone said, no, there's a Black woman named Lisa Whittington who has a painting of Emmett Till.
Yes.
And they pulled it out. And now it's a comparison. You know, now we can see what has happened with our history.
Yes, and even that comparison, like you're saying, just shows the difference in the way history is perpetuated depending upon whose perspective is putting it out there. I mean, those are two different stories that we see in Dana's and your painting.
Right. And her version allowed people to just look at it and say, oh, okay. Oh, so sad it happened to him. Move on.
Right.
But that's not
the reality.
That's not.
Right. Yeah, that was a beautiful painting of yours. Well, speaking of reality and having the responsibility of communicating the truth, and it's really a painful truth, how do you deal with what you're undertaking emotionally? Like, does it take an emotional toll on you, and how do you cope with that?
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
With certain paintings, I have to take my time to complete them. It took over 10 years to finish Emmett Till.
Wow. Understand.
So, yeah, it, you know, because when you're doing these works, it's almost like a method actor. A method actor has to go there. And so for me to tell Emmett Till the truth, or the truth of the Central Park Five, or the people who were lynched, or Breonna Taylor, or some of the other works I'm working on that people have not seen yet. I have to go there. I have to be in that barn with Emmett Till getting beaten, lynched. I have to be there. And so it does take an emotional toll, but I've learned to create a balance. So I do have abstract work, which you might see this one over there to my, what is that, left?
Nice.
So to balance, I'll do work like that. So in my body of work, you see abstracts and you see those narrative works. So the abstracts really are a mind dump for me.
Nice.
So it could be anger, praise, prayer, a song, a poem, a joke, anything. I've got to, it gets dumped in an abstract. So usually what I do, and part of my process, is before I start to paint, I will do some abstract work, which will warm me up and get my mind warmed up for what I need to take on, which is the meat of my work are my narratives.
Right.
And so for me to get those narratives done, I've got to do some abstract work. And then when I finish those narratives for the day, I will sandwich it off with another abstract piece, just so I can have that balance.
Wow.
Because I did learn that is very important to get that balance. On top of doing other things in my life, like, you know, looking at YouTube, looking at pranks, hanging out with my friends, laughing, you know, that's important because it can consume you. It's very heavy. It can consume you. And not being afraid to go to, like, I have a counselor, I talk to them, you know, and they know what I'm doing. And so all of those things help me to keep a balance on my own life.
That's great. And that's great that you've figured out a process that helps you keep that balance and that you identify that you need that balance, because what you're describing is not, you know, it's way deeper than just making paintings. I mean, you're transmuting generational trauma on your own and offering that up for generations to come and those who have been here to feel and heal with you. And I think that's beautiful. And I wonder if you ever realize that that's what you were doing, or that's what you were offering up to generations of Black people, the generational healing. Was that ever an intention, or is that just like a byproduct, a happy byproduct?
It was. The abstract work was not so much of an intention,
Okay.
but it became a necessary thing for me. But it has always been my intention to document the experience of African American people, because once again, there's not a lot of Black people that have been educated in the arts as deeply and don't understand the value of what's going on in the museums. And so it is people like me that have to keep that alive.
Right.
And so, yes, it has always been my intention, because I understand where my people are. We have to catch up. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of catching up to do. Mm-hmm. You know, especially when we walk the halls of these museums and galleries, we have a lot of catching up to do. And so I don't have a lot of time to waste. And I knew that. And so everything that I tried to do, a story will come to me. I'll look at somebody or some situation and say, I want to tell that story, you know, and just grab me. And it's almost like I don't have control of it.
Right.
It's almost like it's something bigger than me that has walked with me and said, this is what you're going to do. And this is how you're going to do it. So
it sounds like purpose, spiritual purpose.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. It definitely, even the way, you know, sometimes I think Emmett Till, his mother, and Van Gogh, all up there cheering for me, like, here, do this. Yes. I promise you.
Yes.
Such a spiritual journey with this art that I know it's bigger than me.
Absolutely.
And so I have to always act courageously and responsibly as an artist.
Well, I thank you for that, and thank you for taking up that role as a Black woman myself, who's just learning about this big old world that I'm in. I really do thank you, and that's part of why I was so honored to co-curate this exhibition, because I wanted to pay homage to my history and artists who have come before me and have paved the way for me to understand myself and understand where we're going as a group of people. So thank you for that and all that you're doing.
For everything you're doing, because curators, you all have a big job. You know, you, not just what's on the walls, you have society to think about, the history to think about. So, you know, and you being aware is important.
Right. Absolutely. I wanted to see if you could talk about how your journey through history and your spiritual relationship with your works, how has that affected your self-understanding or deepened your self-understanding as a Black woman?
Oh, it has really deepened my understanding. It gave me, like, I've always appreciated my color brown, but I appreciate it more. I think I spend more money on different shades of brown and trying to reach different shades of brown. When I go to the store to buy brown pigments.
Nice.
And just to explore how I look as a woman, how other people look, and how to perceive. You know, I have to stand back and look at how the viewer would perceive this work. Mm-hmm. And so it's made me define, especially who I am. It made me see my courage. Because at one point, when I was painting, a lot of people didn't know this. And so I had all these paintings at home, and that's how they kind of found out I had Emmett Till.
Okay.
Because there was a time people, did not appreciate what I did. And when I actually showed somebody my painting of Emmett Till, they called it ugly. And not that I was offended, but I said, they don't understand what I'm doing.
That reveals their level of
Not
work.
what I'm doing. And so I kept my work to myself. I kept it to myself until I had this spiritual thing where it was like, it's time to let it go. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm letting it go.
Beautiful.
But, and I realized that what I'm doing is not for me. And so being an artist built courage for me, because it takes courage to create it.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes courage to show it, because some people won't like it, won't get it, won't understand it, but that's okay.
Right.
Because there are some people that will, and there is a whole culture of people that I'm standing for with my work.
Right.
That I'm being courageous for.
Absolutely.
That I have to find myself, and to understand, find myself within my culture is everything. And then one thing I appreciate is I appreciate being Black. I appreciate being a woman. And people may think, oh, some people, you wish you was white, you wish you were that. No, I appreciate that. I have some of my best friends are white, Jewish, it doesn't matter. However, I still appreciate that God chose Lisa Whittington to be a Black woman, because, and even the poverty, because one thing it has trained you, if you allow, you can go on either end of the spectrum. You can let it affect you, or you can let it shape you and make you grow.
Right.
And being Black and watching the resilience of my own people.
Right.
I mean, that's an amazing, Black people are amazing.
Right.
Amazing. And so I want to help tell our amazing stories, because this is what I see from my eyes, from these windows. I see an amazing culture of people, and I can't take that with me. So I have to show, what I see and what I experience.
That's beautiful. And honestly, your work and the work of artists who are undertaking a similar purpose is helping people like me come to love themselves, because I can't say with the same confidence as you have that I truly see myself and love myself as a Black woman just yet. I'm working towards it, but I can't say that yet. And from my background, I came from the independent school system. I was in programs to help minorities get into that system since 3rd grade. So from that age, I just viewed myself as a commodity that was trying to make myself appealing to a white world and a world of money. And I didn't ever see the value in my struggle or in the poverty that I came from. But looking at your works and seeing the confidence in your works, it helps me see myself differently and see my strength and my beauty differently.
And you are a commodity. You really are. Being a Black curator, you are a very unique and very special commodity. And so, it's going to be awesome just watching the things that you'll be doing. And I'm excited about that.
Thank you.
Especially being from New York City.
Yes.
It has shaped you. So use all those museums and all those things.
Absolutely. I'm going to try. I'm excited. As a featured artist, I just have a couple more questions.
Oh, it's okay.
As a featured artist in art from experience-based identity, What would you like this exhibition to inspire in people, especially considering that it's launched at the end of a very tumultuous year?
Whew, no telling what 2021 is going to bring.
I'm hoping for the best, but I'm prepared for the worst.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, let's look at what 2020 means.
Okay.
2019, everybody was like, oh, 2020, oh, 2020 vision. I'm going to get my 2020 vision. And this is my vision. And 2020 came in and said, bloop.
Mm.
So what 2020 has brought in was that vision looking at who you are. Mm-hmm. 2020 has made us all look at ourselves, our hearts, what we think, how we react, how we treat other people that don't look like us.
Right.
Our Christianity or whatever spirituality, it has put that vision on all of that.
Right.
And so this exhibit, Art from Identity, it's going to help some people to really see themselves, because art is a window into somebody else's world. And so all the artists in this exhibit are showing you, you can peek in their windows of their artwork, and you can see, you know, what they're trying to say, their identity, and then examine yourself and how you react to what they're saying. And so this exhibit is very powerful. It's a powerful way to end 2020, and it's a powerful way to begin a new year. Because 2020, we're looking, it's an inner search of who you are, what you're thinking, and how you perceive other people. And so this exhibit, we open up our world to others to look at it. And so to see how other people are perceiving our worlds is going to make a difference.
Absolutely.
And these kind of artworks are important because they teach other people, you know, people that are not brown like us, about our world and how we perceive our world. So I hope I'm not talking too much.
No, I'm loving it. I'm taking it all in. Thank you. Then the final question I have is, what advice do you have for younger artists hoping to build a career?
Now, I'm always giving them, because I do teach them. And one thing I'm always telling them is art is a bottomless pit, for one thing. You're never going to know everything. I don't care who you are. My name is Dr. Lisa Whittington. I have a terminal degree in art, right, but I don't know everything. I don't. I go to other artists and learn some things, you know. So you're never going to know it all when you're an artist. You're never going to, you know, you try to reach as high as you can and get as much as you can, but you're never going to know it. And don't be afraid to be different. You know, don't go try to do everything like Charlie Palmer, or, you know, Charlie Palmer is Charlie Palmer. So let Charlie Palmer be Charlie Palmer, but be true to yourself. Right. Be true to who you are. Explore. Don't be afraid to explore. Think about Picasso. You have to study other artists. And Picasso taught me, you know, different styles. Don't be afraid of your different styles. If you have something that you're trying to say, what's the best way to say it? What's the best style to use to say it in the most powerful way? So you can't be afraid of that. And you're never going to know everything, but learn as much as you can. And you got to be in the museums. You got to look. You got to pay attention. And you have to, you know, that's something that you have to do.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for talking with me. It truly was a pleasure. I was so excited for this.
I've been excited about this whole thing, and I appreciate you, Brianna, for all of your hard work and the whole team put all of this together, and everything looks absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations on.
Thank you. You too.
Oh.
Thank you. And I wish you the best 2021, best new year. And I'm excited to see what new works you'll have.
All right. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
All right. So same here.